Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to Silly Hall and for another round of what the heck is going on. So also with us today is Joy Patterson, your zoning administrator. So if you have any land use zoning questions, today would be a really good day to ask those, since I don't know anything about any of that, and she is our expert. So we've done a pretty good job, I think, overall of kind of getting through the conditional use permits of all the ones that were approved in submitted in 2017. I know this is not a very high bar to jump over, but we are now have worked through, I think, all of the backlog of 2017. And it took us a long while to get there. It took us a long while to even start having these hearings, but everything that has been submitted in 2017 has now been heard. And we've got over 140 conditional use permits now approved. And we're wading through the very now big pile of business operating permits. Microbusinesses. So the council approved microbusinesses last week. This week? Feels like last week. They'll now take the sorry, I need another cup of coffee. They'll now take the permit fees need to go to the Budget and Audit Committee. Those will go in the month of December, and after that, we can start taking applications for the micro business permits. Storefront dispensaries. This item was discussed at the council meeting earlier this month. What the council kicked back to us was come back with recommendations for increasing, I'll say, equity or diversity amongst the cannabis businesses. We may be, as a step of attempting to understand what that cannabis industry currently looks like, we may be sending around a survey. It would be a web-based survey. If you could all take a minute to voluntarily, if you feel so inclined to complete that, I think we're gonna be looking at not just kind of the ethnic composition of the cannabis industry and gender composition of the cannabis industry, but also taking a look at trying to do an assessment of number of jobs you all are creating. So taking a stab at measuring the economic impacts, not just doing a survey just based on gender and diversity. So I think we'll hope to have that out to you probably in the month of December, maybe early January, so that we can return to Law and Ledge with that data and some additional strategies of increasing diversity within the cannabis space that may include adding new storefront dispensaries. Does everyone have this on their radar? You've got like days now, hours. The countdown has begun. If you have not applied for your temporary state permit, you're not going to get your provisional permit, which means that you're going to have to go through all the hoops and hurdles of obtaining the annual permit from the state. I can't stress the importance of this enough. If you are in a place where you are currently operating or hope to be operating very quickly, that provisional license is going to be very valuable to you. And those folks that don't have this temp permit to operate after December 31st, we're going to be taking a very hard look at the landscape around who is operating and who is not, and matching up those folks who are operating with who has a temporary state permit. And if you don't have that temporary state permit, and you don't have that provisional permit, we're going to have the conversation of what time today are you closing down? So get your temporary permits in, or be prepared to not be operating. This is just kind of how it works. We're not providing anyone with letters of some sort of certificate for your local authorization. We are in direct communication with the state. So once you have applied for your temporary state permit, they reach back out to us for that local authorization. And if you have submitted a complete application with us, you have your CUP in a row, we will confirm for the state that you are eligible to receive that temporary state permit. Again, I think anything that's related to the building department, I'll just continue to stress again, make sure that you are hiring professionals to do this. Your buddy with a CAD system design may be the right person. Your buddy with a CAD system may just be your buddy with a CAD system, and he knows nothing about the fire code or the building code, and he's going to cause you lots and lots of problems. Hire professionals to do this. It makes, if you hear and see people that have obtained their building permit, 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 times out of 100, it's going to be because they have hired design professionals, and they're more easily able to to get through that process, because our folks know, they know what city folks are looking for. And so when they sit down with these very complicated set of plans, our planners aren't trying to figure out, well, what does that mean? Well, what does that mean? Because they're not done by a true professional. So please hire professionals to do this. Shared manufacturing space. So it is in the regs. It can be a little bit complicated as to what this means. If anybody has any questions about this, we can talk about it a little bit more. But if you're looking to open up or participate in a shared manufacturing facility, there are strict guidelines around really kind of the time and scheduling of who can participate in that and what pieces can be shared. Good news is that it can happen and it can be done. This is also going to start becoming a bit of a thing. Those folks that have submitted, if you are a registered cultivator, registered manufacturer, registered delivery company, if you've submitted for all of that and you are wanting to operate, you are operating, you've submitted for your building permit and you are dragging your feet, you are about to meet the housing and dangerous building folks. And you're not going to like it, just to be honest. So we've asked that you take no more than 45 days in between plan check comments. It's because if you are operating, we want you to move through this process. We want you to get your building permit. We want you to do your building permit. We want you to get your temporary certificate of occupancy. We want you to ultimately get your certificate of occupancy and your business operating permit from the city. And there are a number of folks, many of them, who have been dragging their feet, not responding to plan check comments, what appears to, I'll say, people that just kind of dragging this process out so you can continue to operate in a substandard facility without making the necessary investments to do it safely and to do it legally and to do it properly. That is about to come to an end. So if you have plans in with the building department, check in on your building permit. Where is it at? When was the last plan check comment? We have folks that are way over the 45-day period, and it's going to become very problematic. And you overlay this with the temporary permit and You know, I know the term extinction event gets thrown around in this industry again, but Sacramento's looking at an extinction event. Because I think we've been very generous of or attempting to accommodate the industry and transitioning into a legal framework, and recognizing that folks have been operating and creating pathways for legality, but there's a limit to that, and we're fastly approaching it. So if you have your building permit in and you haven't had an inspection in a while, you haven't done your build out, I don't know what to tell you other than you're about to lose your local authorization, and housing and dangerous buildings folks are going to come visit you and open up a case. And, you know, the worst case scenarios are you lose your local authorization, they pull the meter on your building, and then you have to do your construction. Then you have to get them to come back, put your meter in, it's just so you can finish the necessary construction, and no one can re-enter or use the building until you've completed your building, all of your build out, which means you have to get your building permit first, and that can take a very long time. And I don't say this to be like mean or anything, but again, we put out these deadlines a long time ago, hoping that folks would follow the path. And I can only encourage you all to go in and check on your building permit and get your building permit as quickly as possible. Yeah, so I think kind of like the bigger pieces that we're still going to be looking at is on-site consumption in the coming year, potentially adding new storefront dispensaries. That's going to be in the early part of next year, as well as allowing events outside of Cal Expo. So the next item that's actually going to come to council is going to be the Cal Expo one, right? Yep. So I don't think that's good on there. Oh, there it is. So there are a number of folks that are interested in having events at Cal Expo. The first and only one that we did was a one-off approval. This is this would be a resolution that would allow the city manager or his designee to approve events to take place at Cal Expo. If the council approves that, I'll bring forward an item that would allow the council to consider events to take place at other locations outside of Cal Expo. That, along with the dispensaries and on-site consumption, are probably the big policy items out there for this year. I think that is a slide call. Please send us email or Jamie. That's kind of all I got. Again, hire design professionals. Please get your building permits. Otherwise, it's going to not be fun for some people. Other than that, how's it going? Yeah, I get it, right? Or do the regs come out tomorrow or Monday? Who's you think Monday? I think Monday too. I think they're going to use the weekend to keep writing and responding to the 8,000 comments that they received. You know, it hasn't been easy for us either because, you know, we're kind of in the same boat. We are in the same boat, and responding to all these changes is absolutely difficult. So, see none? Awesome. Just one, Randy. Yeah, I don't believe that.
Hi, Joe. Question on the micro-business license, not on the fees or anything. I have a client who currently has 2 licenses. They have a cultivation and distribution. They want to add a 3rd one. does it make sense to advise them to go for the manufacturing BOP or to just wait until the micro business license is ready and take their 2 and go for the micro business? I'm just logistically trying to figure out that those who are interested, if you only have 2 of the 3, what's the path? Or 1 of the 3, what's the path?
Yeah, I don't give business advice. I would probably say that it certainly depends on what they plan or want to do with the state, right? So if they want to apply for that temporary state permit for micro, their window is...
They applied for that, so they want to know on the
If they've
local
applied for the micro at the state and they want it with us, then their only path would be to apply for that whatever that third permit is, like now, and then we could say they've applied for all 3 with us. They're good for a micro at the state, and we can reconcile it at some point, and they can decide if do they want to have 3 permits with us or 1 micro. We can sort that out later.
That's very helpful. So the second part of the question, and I'm glad Joy's here, is if they are going for a 3rd license but don't have a CUP for that one. Like if you have a CUP for cultivation and distribution and you want that 3rd piece for the micro business, do you have to go get the manufacturing CUP? Or is it a micro business CUP?
Well, because it's a production CUP, so they probably just need to do a minor modification of whatever that they have to include the piece that they're missing. But it's really it's just a minor modification. The only additional conditional use permit would be if they're adding the retail component to that, and that is I'm sorry, it's 2 CUPs if you want to have retail and production. Yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you. That's what I needed.
Hey Joe, I got a couple quick points of clarification. You mentioned a temporary certificate of occupancy. I haven't heard of that.
So temporary certificate of occupancy is a very, I'd say, common building provision that is used. So folks that you've got your build out, or you've got your building permit, you've done your build out, you are within, minor tweaks here and there, the building department can come in and say, okay, we'll grant you a temporary certificate of occupancy. Here's your punch list of things to correct. We'll be back. You make those changes, and we'll give you the certificate of occupancy.
Okay, thanks. And then you mentioned 2 separate local authorization processes for temp licenses and for annual licenses. If you already hold a temp license, would the original local authorization carry to the annual license issuance, or would you be going through a separate local authorization process on that?
It's going to be separate.
Okay.
I mean, and again, I don't think we're going to give anybody like a piece of paper, but it's your temp license. We're allowing folks to get the temp license that maybe haven't completed all of their necessary build-outs because we want this transition to occur. So the annual one for everyone is going to be a little bit of a more strict scrutiny, if you will.
Okay, and then how does that process relate to provisional licenses?
Provisional licenses should really just transfer over from the temporary.
Okay.
That should be what I'm hoping is that it's going to be a fairly seamless transition at the state level.
Uh-huh. So in other words, the local authorization from a temporary license would be the same process for the local authorization for a provisional license?
Yep, I think so.
Okay.
We've yet to kind of interact with the state on the provisional license yet, but yeah, no,
okay.
That should be the same.
All right, and that's it, unless you want to share any insights you have on how the state is doing with actually processing these applications.
Let's call Lori. I think I mean, you guys would be a better judge of that than I am in some ways. I know that they're drowning. I hear that different agencies are maybe moving a little bit more efficiently than others. I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I will. I heard that CDFA is a little bit more challenging to get the applications through in terms of like how it gets kicked back and kind of ending up at the back of the line for what amounts to kind of technical changes. But I think that they're trying to streamline their process too. But I mean, you guys are, and women are the absolute better judge of how that's really all working than I am. I hear it's going great. Right. That's what I'm told. They're working. I know. It's a lot.
Just had a quick question. The temporary occupancy permits, we were talking about that today. I was talking to Sophia, and I was asking or clarify. So we have a facility that we already are in the process of getting built out. We're operating, but on the new facility, we're starting our build out. How is the best way of going about that on a certificate of occupancy? Like you said, we obviously don't want to build all 12 rooms and wait. We want to have 3 or 4 rooms up as immediately as possible to help with cost. But you were kind of the way you just described it. You said do all 13 and then, hey, I want to operate. But really, is it better just to do, hey, this is our full phase build out, but we're going to only do phase 1, our bedroom, 5 flower rooms, and all of our trim areas and stuff like that? Or, how is that going to work for the people that actually are funding this, that can't afford to just have buildings sitting empty? What's the best way to get a temporary and be online with what you guys want to see, where you're not going to walk in the building and say no?
So you want to phase in your construction, essentially?
Yeah, we don't have $6 million to put up front, but we want to be able to start making money pretty much immediately and pay you guys taxes. So what's the best way of doing that? So we're not going to say, hey, we want to do this, and then that's the idea we have in our head, and you guys are like, no. We want to see this. So are you going to want to see it like, hey, build this half, and this half is not going to be affected by the construction side of the second phase, or you got to get picky? I just,
Our building official isn't in the room. I'm kind of looking at the.
There's ways to face the project that Joe and I are not the people to tell you how to do that, because it's life safety issues, what rooms you may have made for activity reasons or something, you may have to have different rooms, or saying, if you have a use permit that, has a certain amount of rooms, we haven't specifically said, once you get a building permit and start the process of filing that permit, and then enter conditions, you're activating your use permit. So, and you can use 3 rooms, for my room, if you have 5 rooms, you're going to use 3 rooms, do the other 2 rooms later.
so as long as we're meeting fire code, building code, everything's there. You guys are on the same page. It's like, hey, we need to get these fired up so we can pay the rent. And this is not I'm not saying build out half this and you have to walk through a construction site to get over here, but as long as it's laid out right, you can do that in phases. And
Yeah, I think. You need to work that out with. Yeah, you're gonna have to work that out, like with the building department, like very specific terms. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
all right. I just wanted
Like
to make
security cameras aren't going to be in phase 2.
No.
It's like we'll put in all the grow lights, the fire sprinklers, and security stuff will go in later. But if you want to build out like 4 rooms, I believe, and I wish Jeff was here, but I believe that there's a way for you to kind of go back to them and say, okay, like that half of the building, we would like to do later. You may ultimately have to kind of go back and change your plans because your
That's
permit
what I talked
your
about.
permit may expire.
or have to update.
But But you mean, I think there are ways for you to kind of go back and phase in construction.
That was my only question. Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions?
She asked from the back of the room. I love it. VOG.
I just have a question about whether you've heard anything about the Nexus study that's supposed to be published at some point as the alternative for the Neighborhood Responsibility Plan Agreement.
Stay tuned.
To what degree do you feel that site being located in a transit-oriented district is a problem for approval or operations?
So you're within some amount of proximity to. Oh, thank you for bringing that up. So you're probably within some radius of a light rail station. I assume that's kind of like
Yes.
what the crux. So that there was a proposal that was brought forward by persons in the planning department that would limit the types of use within half mile and a quarter mile of a light rail station under the planning and building, under the planning principle around density, encouraging density within transit. There were 17, we'll call it 15, maybe 17 cultivation applications that were in the pipeline for approval that were within that radius, in addition to some other uses. The item was brought before council. Was it Lawn Ledge? I thought it was council. Didn't it go to council though? Yeah, and then it got booted. Already? Council booted it. Or was that Lawn Ledge? Yeah. We already went through Planning Commission? It already went through Lawn Ledge again? I don't think so. Yeah, there was an item that was brought before council. Council asked planning staff to make some changes to it that would look at other factors, including bus routes and some other types of transit uses, but also dealt with these existing applications so as to not be retroactive or retroactively punitive to these applications. And so I don't know how it's going to shape out, but it's possible that maybe those applications are going to be essentially grandfathered in. Future applications would be potentially problematic for applying in there. But that council asked staff to go back and further evaluate the proposal.
And was that specific to cultivation, or was that for basically all types?
One council member's, I'll say, comments were more specific towards cultivation. So I think they asked him to look at maybe some other uses, but cultivation, I think, was the maybe most would have been impacted the most. 17 applications was a significant number.
Sure. So they're just dealing with what was on the plate at the time?
Yeah. And so, and in the meantime, these items are going to potentially be heard and potentially receive conditional use permits and theoretically be grandfathered, Are we going to strip away an approved CUP?
Prohibitions by in cultivation happened to be one of them, and it was prohibiting it in certain
It's not going to go back to Lawn Ledge?
No,
They didn't pass it, though.
they passed, they made the recommendation to go forward with it. So it's the whole package, yes.
Okay.
It's on its way, it's not going back to Lawn Ledge yet. It's going to.
Yeah, okay. I didn't think that they approved it.
They said work on these things on your way.
Oh, okay. Well, they had a lot to work on based on some of those comments. Oh, there you go. I stand corrected.
Anybody else have any more questions?
That tonight? When does it go? If you're hanging out for a few more hours, it might be a good meeting for people to attend. I think they start at 6. 5:30? Oh, they keep changing all the times. Any other questions, comments, concerns, things we could be doing better? I know there's things that we can be doing better. You guys are too polite. Like, I want my permit first, then I'll tell you the truth. All right. So I'll take this as an opportunity. Is there anything else that I should know? I mean, like, literally, seriously, is like related to what we're doing or what's kind of going on out there? Think so. I think so too. Because the labs aren't ready or nobody's ready. From the same lab. Yeah, I think there's at least one more lab looking at Sacramento. We've got 2 applications for labs. 5 new applications. No, we have 5 total. Yeah, the testing thing is like I get it. I have attempted to advocate for changes to the testing, even just ones as simple as allowing labs to retest, like the same lab to retest. I was hoping to make some progress on that. You know, I'll ping Lori again today on that. I know it's a problem because one dirty test from dirty equipment that they failed to clean properly, and you've got like the whole batch fails and needs to be remediated. And it's like, I understand that they don't want folks lab shopping, if you will, but at the same time, if you can't get consistency out of a lab, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, the testing I understand why it's potentially very valuable and important, but we seem to kind of go sprinting out of the gate on all these requirements. I mean, like the beeswax one. Has everybody heard about the beeswax issue? Right? It's like, so you can't even find like beeswax that makes the state's cannabis testing standards for topicals, but you can go down to the street and, you know, buy it in all of your lip balm. Like, we'll call that irony. And apparently it's like all of the beeswax, or like 75% of all the beeswax that's out there doesn't pass the state testing standard. Oh, only 95%, right? Yeah, okay. If you have any other specific comments around testing, I will gladly take those in the next day and ping Lori on them. Yeah. Does the state need to open it, like do we need like a state lab? Please send me like a detailed email. What percentage of product, either manufactured or flour or otherwise, fails at phase 3, either from just the testing standard or the irregularities or inconsistencies within the labs? Is it going to be half? Yeah, I mean, what's your guys' kind of guesstimate as to? Labor is equivalent to testing fees. Yeah.
in this industry, there are people that are trying.
Well, ballpark me cost, is it, I mean, you said it's about equal to labor's at 20%, 10%, 15%? Yeah, I've been arguing behind the scenes for a state lab for a little while now. I obviously haven't gotten much traction with it, but shocked to hear that. Illicit market. Okay. If you've got kind of data or bullet points, I'll just say today, send them to me, and I'll do my best between now and really tomorrow to stringently communicate that with the BCC, even more so than I already have. And then we've got these things come out, and we've got like a 10-day comment period before their final, right? Is that how? Am I remembering this correctly? Yeah, but isn't there not like a 5 or 10-day comment period? It comes out. It's going to come out. We'll see something on Monday, right? And then isn't there a 10-day comment period off after that while it goes to rulemaking, or am I just making that up? Okay. All right. All right. So we're getting closer for Eva. At least until it changes again, right? I mean, let's just be honest, until it changes again. Sam, I get the testing thing, so send me whatever you got, and yeah, I've been trying to communicate, just so you all know, with the state and all their agencies around these regulations, around making them, pragmatic to the degree that they encourage compliance. Because the second that it really becomes an unobtainable goal, people are just going to say, well, F it. Whoops, it got stolen. Oh, look, someone knew exactly where to cut a hole in the roof, right? And made off with all of the product. I get it. They saw it in Colorado, and yeah. Meanwhile, just incentivizes the illicit market. So, all right. All right, so we're all messed up and we're all screwed. What else is new? If there's one thing that I've found about cannabis is that it is all complicated and somehow ends up being way more complicated than you ever thought or that it needs to be. And just when you think that it might be somewhat kind of okay or remotely easy, no. It turns out that it's all messed up. Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, so I think some of that is it wasn't right. It wasn't, and they learned lessons that we didn't have to, or right, or that were easy, like edibles shouldn't look like candy. You know, I went to Colorado last month. Pot rocks. I'm like, really, guys? You still haven't figured out why to not make pot rocks? And it looks just like Pop Rocks. And so there's some things that we have learned from that. And I think that there were some things that, you know, we as a state really overreached on in terms of setting that bar so high of like, we're gonna be the best. And they're great goals. Phase 3 testing standards are great goals, and we should probably absolutely get there, you know, if we can. However, in the meantime, we do need to transition this industry that is, you know, still figuring out child-resistant packaging, and we haven't even got into track and trace yet, right? Waiting for that one. You know, I mean, like, yeah. Has anyone heard? Anyone got any good rumors on track and trace? Right. Has anyone been trained on track and trace? For California, you've been trained on track and trace.
So after you get your annual, you then have to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will tell you that I attempted to participate in a CDFA, again, not to throw them under the bus, but they keep giving me ammo, CDFA webinar on track and trace. And we logged on, we're all in the conference room with the big TV and like the interactive webcam, and it says, you know, screen pops up, this webinar will start in 5 minutes. Like 30 minutes later, it goes, the webinar is closed. And like that was the whole webinar. It was just one screen of it's going to start and now it's over. I was like, all right, well, I don't know what we missed, but apparently it was the webinar. So, all right, 15 businesses. Has anyone else been trained on it? I've asked for a training on it. Did a webinar work for you? It did? This was the one that was like a month ago? Was it awesome? Oh, okay. So this was a different one. Was it awesome? I didn't do it. No. It is not. You know, so we'll see how all that works out and rolls out too. So I was actually hoping that they were going to phase track and trace in with cultivators or, you know, or nursery, starting at the nursery folks and kind of let product flow through the supply chain but it's everyone who gets the annual license, so it's going to have some cultivators on it and some manufacturers on it and some distributors on it, and eventually it's all going to tie in together. Right. Are they in Sacramento for this one? Who is it? Verizon? You're the first in Sacramento to have track and trace?
Not track and trace, your annual license.
Or your annual license, right. So that means you're going to be the first person to be on track and trace. Let's talk. I'd like to, maybe if they offer you a training, I can tag along. That would be, that'd be nice. Anybody else close to track and trace since we're talking about it? Good for Horizon being the first one out the gate. Congratulations, I think. Right? I know. Right. Here's all the stuff that magically appeared. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, in full disclosure, like the city of Sacramento, the city of San Francisco, the city of Los Angeles, Oakland, and some other big cities have all asked for access to the back end of track and trace. And it may require a legislative solution to actually have us have access granted to it. I know that this new JPA, has everyone heard about the California Cannabis Authority? Anybody? Take a look at it. It's interesting. There's some JPA out there that is like it's a JPA. You know what a JPA is of counties that have formed this. It stems out of CSAC. They've formed this JPA, and they are trying to be the sole entity to have access to track and trace. Yeah, exactly. So yeah. So if you've got any connections over to CSAC, maybe poke around. I've met the person who's like their point person for it. She seems very nice, but it caught me completely off guard. I was like, what do you mean you're a JPA for like counties and you're the California Cannabis Authority? I'm like, okay. So I don't know. We'll see, but they're angling for basically being the sole government entity other than the state that can have access to track and trace. And I think for people like the city of Sacramento and Oakland and Los Angeles, I think that our response to that is going to be go fish. So, because we want access to it too. It's interesting data. It's important data. If you haven't figured it out, track and trace is going to be really where audits are going to be going, as well as like compliance checks. And it's all going to be, we're going to be looking for levels of statistical significance that are, standard deviations above 1 to figure out like anomalies. Right? And so, yeah. So we'll see how that one all too kind of happens. So when are you supposed to be on track and trace? All right, February. You have 30 days. All right. Anything else that's kind of worrisome out there? Get your building permits. Can't stress that enough. If you think you have a building permit, you probably don't. Just to be clear, I've gone through like the list, and it's, if you think you have a building permit, you probably don't. You may have submitted for a building permit. Like your panel upgrade does not constitute all of the building and tenant improvements requirements that are be necessary for your grow facility. And there are a lot of people that are way more than 45 days out from their comment period. There are some people that have submitted that haven't touched their permit since June, and it's all going to come to a head. So if you know other people that aren't here, spread the rumor that there's a whole bunch of people that are about to have a problem. Some of them are registered cultivators, and it's not going to be pretty, folks. Yes, sir. Yeah, it's worse than you think. So best I can tell, so word on K Street is, not this K Street, but the other K Street, is that they're going to have a lame duck session here for Congress, and they're going to pass the Farm Bill. That's going to include the McConnell amendment. So the Farm Bill is in conference, and they're supposedly going to have a lame duck session, which means it's in between Congresses, right? So this Congress is still active for like the next 25 days, and folks, the new people get sworn in January. Anyways, they're going to pass the Farm Bill supposedly, and it's going to include the Senate version, which has the McConnell amendments, which is going to essentially legalize hemp, and it also potentially has in there this Agricultural Research Institute. There's some also potential interactions with the Business and Professions Code that, any attorneys in the room? Yeah, so Business Professions Code around out-of-state companies having ability to do federally legal business activities across states and in other states, and so there's that potential interaction. And then there's also now the ability for the county farm ag commissioners to issue hemp permits. They're $800. That's it. So I know that some counties are now looking at bans and distance requirements. It's potentially a little bit of a hot mess, and so we'll see. I think it's going to take, we could be dealing with a little bit of chaos for like the next 2 years around hemp, because I think it's going to take that long for, if the Farm Bill is passed, for the Department of what is the federal department that I'm now drawing a blank on? Basically, USDA, to come out with guidelines and really strict rules and regulations. I won't say really strict, but clear rules and regulations around hemp. That's going to probably take amount of time. And in the meantime, we could be in a what's been described to me as like a Prop 215 situation with hemp, especially with county ag commissioners now able to issue hemp permits. And no one knows, just if you know people or are involved in outdoor cultivation, how far that stuff can drift. And so a cultivation farm within some reasonable proximity, reasonable could be, I mean, if we're talking pesticides, like if we're talking similar drift like pesticides, we could be talking miles, right? So a cannabis cultivation facility could contaminate the hemp farm and cause them to have THC levels above 0.3%, which makes them criminals. Vice versa, that hemp could also drift, and your outdoor cultivation facility could find your entire crop full of seeds. So this is just now developing. They'll potentially pass the Farm Bill again in the next couple of weeks. But I know that some counties are looking at bans on hemp until they kind of figure this all out. But hemp is coming. It is, I would describe, if you are in places that are on outdoor cultivation or have outdoor cultivation, pay very close attention as to what's happening, because I think hemp is going to roll through. It's going to be big ag, right? It's going to be huge. Yeah, I would expect thousands of acres of hemp to be planted in this state, and across tens of thousands of acres of hemp to be planted across this country in 2019. It's going to potentially be significant, and like the force kind of behind it is going to look and probably feel like big ag, and not, mom and pop. Hey, I want to grow some cannabis. So, but it's potentially problematic. I know in YOLO they have outdoor grows. I also believe, in my understanding, that they've told folks, get indoors, get inside a greenhouse. And I know most of those grows are currently not in greenhouses, but they've been telling them, get inside. And yeah, hemp is on the horizon. Reach out and touch it. And to further complicate it, apparently there's a number of varieties. I'm becoming a hemp expert now because I have to. That there's different varieties. Some clearly does not look like cannabis. It's like 11 feet tall. It's big and tall and stocky. Other varieties are short, bushy, looks a lot more like cannabis. So, add that under the enforcement nightmare. Like, isn't hemp? Is it cannabis? I don't know. Do I have to sit here and wait 3 more weeks for it to flower or not? Maybe. Run a genetic profile and do some DNA testing on this stuff. But I've got my $800 hemp permit. Yeah. Luckily, we don't have outdoor cultivation in Sacramento, so I don't have to worry about that. But all this stuff popping up in gas stations and it's going to be the issue. Sorry, there never seems to be any good news when we do these. Yeah, so I guess if there's a silver lining to this. Was that Joe Kennedy? No. Govern? Yeah. So I think it's going to be removed from the controlled substances. Yeah, I think you're spot on with that, and we'll see. I think we need to also kind of watch what form it takes, right? So if it's going to be the States Act, this is yeah, it would allow banking, and it may or may not allow movement across state lines. Yeah, so this is like federalism, at its finest. Yeah, states are the petri dish of democracy, right? So potentially we could be moving cannabis legally between Oregon, Washington, Nevada. We'll see. But yeah, I think this next Congress will do it. I mean, the Senate, I think, is going to be. I think the Senate's there too. We'll see. Trump has said he'd sign it. Right. It's going to be huge. It's going to be great. Wow. Wow. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's all going to be happening quick, and in the meantime, we have to continue to muddle through all of these, problems. I guess if that's the silver lining to this is like keep looking over the horizon, and we'll eventually kind of get there. And hopefully it's not. Hopefully there'll still be some of the same people that you started the journey with. There at the end. It's not like your first day at law school. Right? Look left, look right. Only one of you is going to be there at the end. Thank you. You guys are great. Inspired another people 20. Marin.
So none of that discussion was recorded.
Good.